We've done the positional breakdowns for the 2025 class. Now it's time to put it all together in a 2-round superflex rookie mock draft. My name is Matt Higgs, the FF Educator, and I am here with John Lobb, the Gridiron Scholar. Like I said, 24 selections. We're working through how we would envision a 2024 rookie or 2025, rookie draft going down if it was held today. This will be Superflex PPR, no tight end premium. So without further ado, John, let's just go ahead and get right into it here with the 101. Now, we discussed in our wide receiver positional episode how valuable the position is this year. And we discussed a differentiation between our top wide receivers. And so I'm going to go with my wide receiver one. I'm going to go with Luther Burden, the wide receiver out of Mizzou. I love his inside-out versatility. I love his hands. I love his speed. I love his ability to separate off the line of scrimmage. And right now, I honestly believe that I would take him 101. There's an opportunity for some of the quarterbacks that we're going to talk about to rise up. But this is more of a conversation about Luther Burden than it is an indictment completely on the quarterback class.
So Matt, but it is about the quarterback class. I mean, a little bit. We can't just sit here. There is not one. I don't have a grade in the top 10 amongst the quarterbacks. In a super flex draft, if a quarterback got drafted like number 15 in the first round, that might not make him the number one. So I agree with you going to the wide receiver position. Now, obviously, things could change, but I do like Burden, but I have someone else in mind.
I'd take him. Take him off the board here at 102.
So I'm going to go with my number one wide receiver. I have Burden at number 2. I'm going to get Tutoria McMillan of Arizona. You know I like my big boys. I can't risk the quarterback. The range of outcomes is so great, Matt, for the quarterback position at this point. I'm not going to risk it. So I'll take T-Mac. He's already got 124 career receptions, over 1,800 yards, 6'5", 205 pounds. Matt, in my book, he's a star. I think he's got a first 20 pick locked in, barring anything crazy this year. So I'll take Tutoria McMillan of Arizona at number 2.
Now, if you're watching on YouTube, we want to encourage you, drop a comment. Let us know what you think about these picks. We love the banter that we're getting here from our positional preview episodes, and we know a mock draft gets even spicier responses. So drop us a comment, let us know. And, if you are listening, if you're doing the podcast version, we really appreciate you as well, especially on Spotify, man. Those 5-star reviews we're almost in the triple digits, which is fantastic. So we really appreciate those 5-star reviews. So keep those coming in as well. Now at 103, there's a lot of directions we can go down here. And I think most folks would choose one of the Ohio State running backs at 103. But for me, it's hard to choose right now which one of those guys I'd rather have. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to try to make John take the first running back off the board. I'm going to go to the quarterback position, and I'm going to take Carson Beck. Now, we talked about in the positional preview episodes, right? A big part of understanding the value of the class right now is projecting value, right? And so I'm going to project growth. I'm going to project value development for Carson Beck, who I do think is far and away the quarterback one heading into the season. Now, that's among NFL scouts, not just fantasy football players. And as I'm starting to really break down Carson Beck film over the summer, man, I see some good mechanics. I see good decision-making. I see solid arm talent. I see solid mobility. So I think he has all of the pieces. And it's really easy to get scared off because of the Kenny Pickett, solo quarterback class. I do think Carson Beck as a prospect is a tier above Kenny Pickett, right? I do believe that, and I do believe that that'll help kind of push up the overall value of the quarterback class. So 103, I'm leaning into the format, that super flex format, and I'll take Carson Beck off the board and pass it on to you, John, here at 104.
I like Carson Beck there, and he's number 1 at my rankings, Matt. The only thing that prevents him from being number 1 in my book is his lack of rushing upside. And we know how valuable that is. So that, to me, is the difference maker. I do not like any quarterback right now, so I'm not taking one here. Then we have an argument between the running backs and wide receivers. I'm going to leave it up to you to choose the running back. I'm going wide receiver, Emeka Egbuka of Ohio State. I know there's still a wide range of outcomes with him. There's a lot different perspectives after a down year last year. But if you look at the 2 seasons in totality, he's still a very good prospect. This year, he might have 100 receptions, Matt. He might have 50 if they run the ball, 700-800 times. We don't know, but I still like his film from his junior year, and I watched some last year. He was also injured. So I'm going to go Egbuka here. I still think he has value at this early process in a Devy/early rookie draft.
Yeah, I think overall the Devy fantasy football community is down on Egbuka. But I got to tell you, from everything I'm seeing, everything I'm reading and hearing, I don't think the NFL scouting community is down on Egbuka at all.
I don't think so.
I think they are still wheels up on him, and if he gets that first round draft capital, then he's definitely going to be a top 5, top 6, rookie pick. So I think that's a good move, even though it's probably higher than in his average consensus ADP and ranking would be at this point. All right, so since you made me choose, I'll go ahead here. I'll be the one to bite on the Ohio State running back, and I'll go Travion Henderson. I think if I'm looking at Henderson versus Judkins right now, it's a question of Judkins having a little bit more upside and Henderson having a little bit more floor to his game. I think Henderson has good vision between the tackles. He's got good lower body strength. I like his ability to be an extension of the passing game, but also be more reliable in pass protection. I think that's a pro of his game. So I like Henderson. I think he's going to have the room to grow. When we talk about both Henderson and Judkins, we're always going to talk about the fact that these two guys are going to have the chance to look hyper efficient. They're going to be rotating on the field. They're going to look fresh. And down the stretch, I think that's going to make them really stand out on late season film, which tends to get a lot of momentum, right, among the draft community. So I think they have a lot working in their favor, but I'm going to give the slight nod here at 105 to Travion Henderson.
I'm glad you made the choice. I would have taken Henderson also, but I don't think there's really a big difference in Quinshon Judkins. Also at Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State, folks, is loaded. And here's the scary part. Their defense might even be better than their offense. I mean, that's how loaded. Their defense is unbelievably, but we're a fantasy community, so I understand. But I also look overall. Their defense is solid. So I'll take Judkins here. Transferring from Mississippi in the SEC. Matt, he was the number 1 ranked running back in the portal. I still can't believe Ohio State got him in the Buckeye uniform. That is simply incredible when you look at the talent of these two men. They've combined for over 6,000 yards rushing, over 70 total touchdowns, and 87 receptions, the two of these young men on campus so far. I'll take Judkins, and I expect him to be a second rounder. He might go in the first round, but I have a second round grade right now on Judkins.
I think after 106, things get wide open. I think most people would put those first 6 guys we talked about in some order in the top 6. Maybe Henderson a little bit earlier, maybe Beck a little bit later. But after 106, that's where things really start to break open. And that's not to say the 2025 draft is going to have a tier break after 106, right? There's still a lot of time for these values to settle in. So I think as we talk about 106 through, or 107 through 112, or 112, I should say, think about some of these guys will end up in a similar tier, right? Not all of them. We know that's just the reality of the situation, but think of the next 6 or so guys as, the players that could jump up, that could solidify themselves as a tier 1 or tier 2 player. And I'm going to lean into that idea of who could be and go with Evan Stewart, the wide receiver, formerly of Texas A&M. Now he's playing in Dan Lanning's Oregon offense. I think he's going to have an opportunity to really shine. You look at his tape, he's fast, he plays quick, he's got good footwork through his routes. I think he's a tough wide receiver, man. Like, you don't see him get pushed off routes. You see him being physical in contested situations. He attacks the ball. He's got reliable hands in that way. there's a lot of good examples of him doing really good things at Texas A&M and a really broken offense, right, over the last 2 years. Now he's got Dylan Gabriel. Now he's in a high-octane offense. This is an offense that made Troy Franklin look fantastic, and I do think it's an offense that can help Evan Stewart be a top 50, if not first-round NFL draft pick. The floor is low, but the ceiling is super high with Evan Stewart. So I really like him here at 107.
I actually, as I look around the Devy universe and kind of like the national media, they're not talking enough about Evan Stewart. Just my perception right now, they're talking about Oregon's loaded. They love Dylan Gabriel. I think he might have made the best decision of any of the transfer. You're going from a broken offense at Texas A&M to a prolific offense and a very good coach at Oregon. So I love him here. Matt, this might be the riskiest pick in the first round, but I tend to plant flags. Sometimes they work, sometimes they won't, but I feel pretty solid in my analysis here. I'm going to go Jackson Dart in Mississippi in a super flex.
All right.
I have him at number 2 in my quarterback rankings. I do think Beck is better, but we are a fantasy show still. And what really stands out with Dart is his dual threat ability. He has over 1,000 rushing yards, Matt. I mean, I don't know if he's better than per se, let's say Justin Herbert, but he's definitely better than like a Michael Penix running the football. I mean, he's got talent with his legs, and that is fantasy points. He's 6'2", 220. I like his arm strength. Matt, I actually took him in the FSGA prop bets draft for my Heisman Trophy winner. It's like plus 2,500. I was like, you know what? If you win the SEC, which obviously that's a risk, but if he did and Lane Kiffin, or they get to the playoffs, Jackson Dart's going to move up tremendously up these boards. I like him a ton. So I'm going to take the quarterback. These to me right now are the only 2 quarterbacks, but we're a little different than consensus. These are the only 2 quarterbacks I have a first round super flex grade on.
All right. 109. I'm going to go with my guy. Hey, you know what? It's July. I want to talk about him. Devin Neal, running back out of Kansas, man. I'm unapologetic. Devin Neal, after watching all the tape on last year's class, if he had declared, he would have been my running back 1 in the 2024 running back class. I think he's got excellent vision. He anticipates space very well. He's got great burst. He is super quick laterally. He's got great lower body strength. You probably don't like him enough because you're not watching Kansas football. But folks, guess what? I'm watching some Kansas football because I have no affiliation to the Jayhawks. But, man, Devin Neal is good. And, by the way, Jalen Daniels is fun as well. So let's hope he's healthy and back in that
offense healthy.
Oh, my God. Yeah, because he opens things up. But, man, like if you're flipping through the channels, you get a chance to watch some Kansas football on Saturdays this fall, man. You got to do it because Devin Neal, and this is probably the highest you'll hear him taken on any mock draft this offseason, but I'm all in on him, man. I think he's a really, really well-rounded runner, and I think he's being disrespected at this point. So, that's where I'm at with 109. It's a little bit above consensus for sure, but, I'm riding it out, man. 110. Let's keep the ball rolling, John.
I'm a big Devin Neal guy also, Matt. I have him in my top 6 prospects right now. I think he's clearly being overlooked by the community. And I believe that Kansas has 9 of 11 starters on offense. I mean, they're loaded. And if Jaden Daniels, the quarterback, stays healthy, watch out for the Jayhawks. They're a very interesting team this year. I like them a lot. I'm going to switch here to wide receiver. And he's a polarizing player, but I like the tape. Not perfect. And I do think he needs some room for improvement. I like Trey Harris in Mississippi. Maybe when I was breaking down the Jackson Dart and I had watched Trey Harris when he was at Louisiana Tech a little bit. But when I see Trey Harris compete at the SEC level against some of the top defensive backs in college football, I look at a young man, 6'2", 205. I think he's an outside receiver. Maybe not a true X, but a Z that you could put an X. I do think he can play outside. I'm going to take care of the SEC wide receiver, who I do expect the Rebels to be very good this year. And if Jackson Dart is good, Trey Harris is going to be good. So I'll take Trey Harris at pick number 10 of Mississippi.
Hey, let's keep on manifesting that. I just acquired Trey Harris in a C2C league, mainly for the PFF production. But if we can manifest some NFL value for it, absolutely, man. 2 for 1 deal there. I like that approach. All right, 111 here. We got to do it. I'm taking Quinn Ewers, quarterback out of Texas.
The gauntlet.
Hey, man, listen. If he puts it all together, he's going to be a first-round draft. If he puts it all together, he's a top 10 draft pick. Like, I'm sorry. I know that you were out there. And listen,
if he won the SEC?
Yeah. I mean, Texas, if they get into the SEC this year, run the table, which, you know, folks, to win the SEC, you might be able to win it with 1 or 2 losses this year. Like, I know we have Georgia there, but to get to the SEC championship game, there's a good chance a 2-loss team. With this 16-team conference now with Texas and Oklahoma, a loaded-up Ole Miss, you got a really good LSU team. You got a good Tennessee team. You got a good Missouri team. You got, obviously, Georgia, right? Like, there is a lot of opportunity to get to that championship game with 2 losses. And you know, for whatever it's worth, then you put it together here, you know, not only that ability to win and be on a national stage, but Ewers has the arm talent. He's got better decision-making than he's given credit for. You know, he's got he displays excellent accuracy at times. It's just the inconsistencies. If he puts it all together, then he can be a first-round draft pick. So at 111, you know what? That's the type of risk that we want to take at this point in the draft, right? So 111, Quinn Ewers out of Texas, and I'll pass it on to you, John, for the last pick in the first round.
Well, I want to mention one thing about Quinn Ewers before I make my pick, because I find it interesting here. And I'm warming up to him more as I'm doing more and more research and studying. And obviously, NFL values winners. And if people don't understand that, it's like, I don't know why they're watching football. What will make Texas interesting, if you're going to compete in the SEC, we've seen it. You have to stop the defensive front sevens. Texas might have the best offensive line in the SEC.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see Texas's offensive line play Georgia. What we are talking about is 2 very manly groups of players, and that is going to be a good old-fashioned street fight. So Texas has a much better chance, and they got skill position players, and Quinn Ewers is underrated. But that offensive line is nasty and good. So I think that's going to be a very interesting thing for Quinn Ewers and their success. So right now I'm looking at the board. I mentioned I'm not going to go quarterback here. I don't believe in any of the quarterbacks. You have left me a running back that I'm still on, and if he falls this late, I will take him at this point. Now, I'm very open-minded that the range of outcomes could be wildly different for this young man. I'm going Nicholas Singleton at Penn State.
All right.
I know we've heard for years Penn State's going to open up. Penn State's going to do this. I get it, and there is reason not to believe it. But they did bring in a new offense coordinator. They hit all of their spring practices, and they were vanilla in the spring game. All the chirping. Every report I say, everyone is saying how Penn State's going to open up this offense. If that's true, I think Nicholas Singleton can hit a home run. And the reason I say this, if you don't know, they hired the offense coordinator from Kansas. Matt and I both like Devin Neal. And Matt, how many times at Kansas have we seen Devin Neal on the outside pretty much wide open and hit a 50-yard home run?
Oh, yeah.
I think Nicholas Singleton is a better athlete, not a football player yet at the college level. I'll say Devin Neal has played better at the college level. Nicholas Singleton's athletic skills, if Penn State implements successfully that Jayhawks offense and they get Singleton in the same position as Devin Neal, Matt, he could, but he could lose the job to Katron Allen. I mean, that's within the range of outcomes, right? But
yeah, we'll talk about that.
I still believe in Singleton in this Jayhawks offense. He really could hit his ceiling.
All right. Before we jump on to round 2, want to make sure folks know about the fantastic Resources available over at patreon.com/rookiebigboard. That includes our 2025 Rookie Big Board. Scouting reports are going up now. I'm focusing on the running back position first, and then I'll build out or more, I should say, throughout the summer with those summer scouting reports. We have our in-depth Devy rankings, Dynasty rankings, 2024 rookie rankings. We have 2024 seasonal projections for our redraft and dynasty players, and insight, personalized advice in the Rookie Big Board Discord. Now is the time to jump into it. The banter, the chatter, the advice, it really helps the offseason move along here. Stay connected. We're rebuilding rosters every day. There's no offseason for us. So make sure to join us over at patreon.com/rookiebigboard. Whether you're watching, whether you're listening, the link will be in the episode description. All right, we're going to move on to round two here. We're going to move through these guys a little bit quicker because we mostly want to put these guys on your radar, right? These are names that you need to know. You know, you can put them, you can mix up the order a decent amount, but they need to be on your radar. You need to be cognizant of them as you head into your fall, 2024 college football season to get ready for the 2025 NFL draft. And at 201 here, I'm going to start with Damian Martinez, formerly out of Oregon State. Now he heads to Miami. And, Martinez is a great example of why I think summer scouting is so important, right? So I'm watching, Martinez's live watch. I'm watching him, last season, and I liked him, but I flipped on the tape, really started digging into him for the summer scouting reports, and I like Martinez a lot, man. I think he's got great strength. I think he's got excellent footwork for his size. So I'm a big fan of Martinez. I think he's got a second gear. He can flip, really be that downhill runner. The NFL absolutely could eat this guy up. I think he is on track to be a day 2 NFL draft selection. And for the running back position, that's the draft capital that we're aiming for at this point. So Damian Martinez off the board, 201. John, who you got here at 202?
I think the running back class is the deepest. So I'm going to pivot back to a wide receiver who I like, Alec Ayamanor of Stanford, or EA. I hear some chatter. Jim Nagy even tweeted out or X'd out. I don't know what we call it anymore, Matt. But even Nagy was mentioning the Stanford speedster. If you don't know, he was a track and field athlete in Canada in high school track and field athlete. He's from Canada, but he went to high school in Massachusetts. EA is good, Matt. 6'2", 210. I think Stanford's not good, so they're going to be playing from behind. I think he might have a monster season. So I'm going to take EA here and just hope that he hits his ceiling for the Cardinal.
Yeah, there's a lot of running backs that are in contention for me here. I'm going to go with Ashton Jeanty, the running back out of Boise State. I think Jeanty has a really high ceiling. That's why I want to talk about him. We discussed this on the running back breakdown episode, but don't write off Jeanty because he's from a group of 5 team with Boise State. He was absolutely recruited through the portal to jump up to some of these P5 teams, but he chose to stay close to home. I think he's got good footwork. I think he's really powerful in between the tackles. He's got that second gear. So he's absolutely somebody, especially playing at Boise State, who could have a huge highlight reel. He could have massive production. If you're somebody who's into those stats and that production level, I think you're really going to like what you see from Jeanty after this season. So at 203, that's a pretty good value for me. 204.
Well, I like Jeanty too. I would have taken him if he's available, but I'm going to go Ollie Gordon. Unfortunately, Matt, we had a little bad news this week. He had a DWI. DUI, right? Driving under DUI. We don't know the outcome from Oklahoma State, what they're going to do. I just hope the young man gets everything together and he's all right. But I still like him as a prospect. So let's see what happens through the course of the season and the rest of the summer. 6'1", 211. I think the Cowboys are loaded. Matt, I read their offensive line averages 23 and a half years of age.
Whew.
I mean, they basically have a pro line at Oklahoma State. Ollie Gordon, if he's on the field at least 10 or 11 games, I think the ceiling's very high for him and the Cowboys.
All right, 205. I've got more running back options. Now, there is a running back who the YouTube viewers have been, they feel like we're disrespecting him, leaving his name out, and I want to take him here, but I also I also want to take one of my guys. Listen, I'm not done with Donovan Edwards yet. He's not buried for me yet. All right. The 2020 3 film, not the best. Not the best. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it was, but we saw flashes of what made me fall in love with him from the 2022 season, right? There's athleticism, there's explosiveness, there's pass catching ability. We saw in the national title game, man, that big home run playability. And listen, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's a healthy approach. But if you're telling me his Debbie stock didn't get a bump from being on the cover of College Football 25, I just think you're lying to yourself. That's all I'm saying. So I feel like in a 24 pick discussion, Donovan Edwards has to be in it. He will be the lead back for Michigan. This will be an offense with a brand new quarterback. Very likely it's a mobile quarterback in Alec Orji. I think Edwards could, the big knock for Edwards is that he's never been the bell cow guy, right? I think there's a real chance that he gets, 225 plus touches this season. The opportunity is laid out in front of him. If you have him on your Devy rosters, hold. If you can try, if you don't, try to buy low. I think this is a guy whose value could only go up from here.
I'm glad you made the decision for me, so I don't have to take or think about Donovan Edwards. And I'm a Michigan guy, but I have my concerns. But I think it's a good pick here, especially with this pass catching upside. So I'm looking at my running back board here. And it's interesting, Matt. The running backs are so much deeper than the wide receivers.
They really are. Yeah.
They are. So I like the value. I'm going to take a big boy, Omarion Hampton of North Carolina.
Go. There's the viewer favorite right there.
Yeah, and I am a little worried about the changes. Drake May's gone. The offensive line, I think they're replacing 3 starters on the line. But Hampton's by far the best guy on that offense. He might not be as productive as last year, Matt, especially from a fantasy perspective, but he might actually be a better player because they're going to ask a lot out of him. It just depends if the line can open up. Don't be surprised if the raw numbers are not there, everyone. We're going to have to look for efficiency, and we're going to have to look to see what he does in very difficult matchups, but I'm taking Hampton here.
All right, 207. I guess it's about time. I guess let's just take Shador Sanders off the board here. Now, this is a wild card, right? There could be some people who would have taken him 107, 108, like a full round higher. There's a lot of variability still with his draft stock, right? I don't think he's a locked-in first-round pick. I think if you look at a lot of NFL mock drafts at this point, he'll be in a lot of them. There's a clear lack of arm talent, right? There's a cap of arm talent, which can be okay, but that needs to come with more consistent accuracy, in my opinion. Now, you could see 2 different Shador Sanderses. Like when that Sean Lewis offense ended halfway through last season, I saw a drop off, but what I will say, and folks, by the way, he's not super mobile. Like he really is a pocket passing quarterback. We talked about this as well on the quarterback breakdown episode. So just keep that in mind when thinking about fantasy, upside. We're talking about a guy who isn't super mobile and has capped arm strength. Now, what I will say in his favor is I think he makes good decision making. He was under pressure a lot. He didn't throw a lot of interceptions, but he did take a lot of sacks. Woo! So you could look at that decision-making one way or the other, right? Because throwing an interception could almost be better than taking a 20-yard sack at some point, right? So there's a lot of question marks heading into the season with Sanders, but I do think it would be wrong to leave him off of this conversation because I think in most drafts he's being valued as a top 24 guy. So 207, it's probably the right time to swallow our medicine and talk about Shador Sanders there.
I think you're right. I have not been in a draft that didn't go off the board in the first round. I actually saw him go off the board at number 2, and I was shocked. That just leaves value to me. But we're not a Shador Sanders program. But there will people who like him a lot more than Matt and I. I like this wide receiver. And I like this value here in the second round. He's a G5 guy, so we do know it's a little bit more challenging. But Torrey Horton out of Colorado State. People are going to look at the numbers. He's already got 239 career receptions for over 3,200 yards, Matt. He's 6'2", 190. I've heard some buzz from NFL scouts and NFL people I'm going to take Torrey Holton here and hope he just ends up with like those numbers the NFL cannot ignore.
Yeah, all right. That's a big swing there coming from the group of 5. I'm going to go to 209 here, and we talked about his teammate earlier. I'm going to take Katron Allen out of Penn State. Now, there's some folks out there who would take Katron Allen over Nicholas Singleton at this point, and if you look at just what's on tape, you'd have an argument for that. I think he leverages his size better at this point. He's more successful at the goal line. I think Allen shows good vision between the tackles. I think he shows a nice level of athleticism. Now, compared to Singleton, I think he's got a lower ceiling, right? And so in July, I'm going to go for the ceiling. So I think it is appropriate we took Singleton, about almost a full round earlier. But I also think it's very appropriate to make sure that Katron Allen is in this conversation. He might be more of a day 3 projection at this point, but a day 3 running back who gets a lot of volume, we've seen time and time again, right? These guys can be consistent producers and they can be really solid for fantasy football purposes. So back end of the second round, it's an appropriate time to take Katron Allen, and I think it's a really nice value point. So I'll pass it off to you, John, here as we get to 210.
I hope I don't sound like a broken record, but the value's all at the running back still. I'm going to go Jaden Ott, California.
Okay.
6 foot 210, 71 career receptions. He's a dual threat pass catching back, 3 down back. California is going to rely on him. They're moving to the ACC. It's a challenging schedule. I think he's going to get as much work as he can handle, Matt. I'm going to take Jaden out here, and just shows you how deep this running back class is.
Yeah, he's going to put that offense on his back, because I challenge all of our listeners, all of our viewers to name one other Cal player. Please, just one. Give me one other Cal player. All right, that would be that's my challenge for you. All right, let's go ahead. My last pick of the draft, 211. I'm going to go a name that I'm not hearing. I'm not hearing a lot of chatter around this name, and, call it a little bit of a homer pick, but I'm taking a Vol. I'm taking Dylan Sampson, the running back out of Tennessee. I kept saying, with Jalen, all this Jalen Wright hype this past season, I've watched every game for the Vols. I don't know how many times back. And I kept telling people Jalen Wright was not the best running back on the field for the Vols. So if you like Wright, I got good news for you, man. Sampson's explosive. He's got that second gear to his game. I think he has good lateral ability. I think he has a good vision. He's going to play in wide open space in this shooting whatever you would call it, offense. It's variation of the Art Briles offense. So but in that Josh Heupel offense, man, like it's going to be a lot of space for Dylan Sampson to work in. So I'm telling you, man, like as a Vol fan, every time there was a big explosive play, it was Sampson on the field. It wasn't Wright. As explosive and fast as people said Wright's tape is, I think Sampson's that next level up. The Vols are returning a lot of experience on their offensive line. They have Nico at quarterback, and he's really going to open things up. So I think Sampson is poised for a big year for the Vols. So at 211, that's my name. I'm going to sneak in here at the end. But, John, you have one more name. You got one guy left. Everybody else who isn't named, we have no respect for. We absolutely think they'll never have any fantasy value. So you got to make sure you get this one right.
Well, I know I'm not going to tight end. So if anyone noticed, we have not taken a tight end.
Not a single tight end.
Nothing on the horizon. So this worked out for a young man 2 years ago when he went from Georgia Tech to Alabama. Jahmyr Gibbs, and not a lot of people were on him at the time. We were. Trevor Etienne has moved from Florida to Georgia. And I said this about Nick Saban. I trust his assessment of running backs more than mine. I'm going to trust Kirby Smart and that staff to realize that they needed another running back, and they identified Trevor Etienne. 5'9", 213, in the right system, in the SEC. He's already proven that he can be effective at Florida. He needs to stay on the field. He needs to, become the bell cow. But I'll take the long shot here with Trevor Etienne going over to Georgia.
All right, 24 picks, Superflex rookie mock draft. The takeaways here: wide receivers early, running backs throughout, quarterbacks with upside sprinkled in, and tight ends are nowhere to be seen. All right. If we want to hear those comments, if you're watching here, drop it on YouTube. Let us know, who did we miss? Who did we miss out on? Tell us the snubs. We'd love to hear it. We'd love to have that discussion with you. Now, whether you're watching, whether you're listening, make sure to join us over at patreon.com/rookiebigboard. Get in on the Discord, get knowledgeable with the rankings, those summer scouting reports as they're built out. We would love you to have it a part of the community, but we absolutely appreciate you checking out this episode of the Rookie Big Board.